let's just break this down and take it slow. What exactly does this new legislature mean?
Well, the new language in there actually gets words into the state law, which has never been in there before. They essentially took it out of the Indianapolis Human Rights Ordinance, and so it includes words like sexual orientation and gender identity, which had never been in the state law before. So, what we call here the fix really did make a dramatic impact, but I think it told the state lawmakers they have a ways to go on this.
As the mayor of a convention city, when did you start paying attention to this law? Was it earlier this year or only after passage?
No, everybody was paying attention to it, and they were warned ahead of time. Even before the governor signed it, I had actually put out a statement ahead of time, urging that not to occur, because we already knew the impact, and people were already calling us. Conventions, sporting events, businesses were already talking about it, and we knew what the impact was going to be. And like I say, a lot of people at the State House had heard what the potential impact was going to be, but to their credit, they admitted that the backlash was much, much worse than they ever expected.
So here we are. NCAA tournament is happening in Indianapolis right now. We know that the media loves to talk about this controversy. We've seen CEOs like Mark Benioff and Tim Cook speak out. What's actually happening on the ground in Indianapolis? Everybody who's in town, big Duke fans, what's going on?
Well, there's a reason that people come here. There's a reason that the conventions come here. There's a reason sporting events that come here routinely, and because they know the execution is relatively flawless, organization is very strong. The hospitality that Indianapolis always shows will always be there, and that's what's happening. They've got record crowds here, obviously. I'm hoping you know that. People are really complimentary of what's happening in the city of Indianapolis right now because of this, because we do not want to be defined by what happened in the state legislature. We've been very clear about that. That's not who Indianapolis is, and so what you're seeing now is not just tremendous games, but we had concerts that we had to turn people awake because they're so full. The Fan Fest is setting records on Georgia Street, where the Super Bowl Village was a few years ago. All of this is just full and packed of people having a great time. So that's good that everybody can see that. Because we're trying to send the message that that's not who we are. That's who we've never been. And we won't be in the future either.
But everyone was already signed up to come to Indy for these games. What's going to happen in the future? Are there any potential events that you were hoping to get that are at risk right now?
Yes, absolutely. There's not much question about that. The only thing that really held it on, I think, was that the city of Indianapolis got out there pretty quickly and very vocally, and also all the relationships that we've built with all these sporting organizations and all these conventions over the years. That's what held it together there for a few days until the legislature got their act together. All that said, going into the future, all those people have their sponsors, their board of directors that they have to report to, and they have to make those decisions. So will we take a hit on this? Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that, and it will take years of rebranding to make sure people understand once again who Indianapolis is, because it's been 40 years we've been building this up.
What does the term rebranding mean? 2 weeks ago, this became a headline. Everyone cared about it. What does rebranding mean? You're going to go out and meet with people who are going to bring potential giant sporting events and concerts into Indianapolis and say, no, we're not who you thought we were.
Well, a month ago, everybody understood who we were. I mean, there's a reason so many conventions are in the pipeline, so many sporting events are in the pipeline, and then we took a hit, and so we have to go back out and say it again, that this is what we're doing. You can even see what's happening on the Final Four. So Indianapolis has never been that way, obviously, and I think people know that. All that said, there's a sales job to be done here into the near future to make sure that these conventions, these sporting organizations, these businesses understand who we are.
Have you reached out personally to Tim Cook, Mark Benioff, or any of the other CEOs who signed the petition and said they want to take their business out of Indiana?
I have not talked to Tim Cook. I have talked to Mr. Benioff, though,
a
couple times, and we've been texting. Sure.
And what was the takeaway? What did he say? I mean, Mark was really forceful. If you followed him on Twitter, he was really pushing other CEOs to back this. What did he say to you? Well,
he obviously wants to. He's got a strong presence here because of Exact Target as it grew up in Indianapolis, and then Salesforce bought Exact Target. There's thousands of employees here with Salesforce, and so he wanted to make this right for us also. He was vocal about it, no question, as were a lot of other people. But he knew we weren't like that anyway, but he was trying to send a signal, as were others, to the State House that you have to correct this. And I think he had force with that, which I appreciate.
All right, well, forgive
but
me
now
if
we
he's...
all have to make it right together.
Forgive me if he's
I'm
put
sorry?
out a subsequent statement. Since you and he spoke and had this text exchange, has Mark Benioff retracted his statement earlier? Is he now comfortable with Indiana and going to continue to do business? What was your takeaway together?
You'd have to ask him. You'd have to ask him how he feels about that. I think he's comfortable with what happened, but he wants to make sure that, as any company would, that all of his employees feel comfortable here in the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana, and I think he will.
Mayor Ballard, these laws have passed in other states with much less controversy in years past, and I get the sense watching Mike Pence, the governor, speak that he was genuinely surprised at the response. You're a Republican in Indiana. Has the ground shifted underneath your party's feet on this issue?
Well, probably a little bit. No, I don't think there's much question about that because the signal was wrong. I mean, there's no question about that. You know, when you read the law by itself, it looks, harmless. But when you put it against the other Indiana code that was in effect, then there's a problem. That was pointed out before all this happened. They obviously thought it was not going to have that much of an effect. But it did.
Can you help us call a spade here? Was this about gay and lesbian rights?
I think you have to look at it a little bit differently. I think some people knew that it might have that effect, but I don't think the majority of the people who voted on this at the State House expected that effect.
Hold on.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Hold on a second.
But, let me explain.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Excuse me.
I was going to say, you can see the reaction afterwards and who was reacting to it afterwards and certainly draw that conclusion.
Just one more. And I think Indianapolis is a great city. I went to the Super Bowl there a few years ago. Had a great time. If some people knew that this was sort of what the punchline was, and they were comfortable with it, what does that say about Indiana?
No, again, I don't think the vast majority of the people who voted on this thought it would have that effect. I don't think I know most of those folks. I know that could not be possibly be true. All that said, when you look at the people who reacted, there were some who probably thought this was part of their agenda. And frankly, I hope those people understand that we're not going to tolerate their influence anymore, and we want them to move aside.
But if you were tracking this bill from its inception, there must have been a sense at the State House long before it was assigned that this could potentially be a consequence of it.
Yes, absolutely. They were told this could possibly be the consequence of it. I think they were talked down by the other side, and they thought this would be a rather harmless bill. It looked, again, if you read it by itself, it looks harmless. If you read it, but if you understand the rest of the Indiana code, there could be a problem in there. But I don't think they had a sense of that. I think a few people did. But I don't think the majority of them did.
I hope I never meet them. All right, Mayor, let's get serious before we go. Who's going to win tonight? Who do you want to win?
Well, this is Big Ten country, and Wisconsin's been knocking on the door for a long time, so I think there's a lot of sentiment there. I love Duke. Coach Krzyzewski is the top notch. They run a great program. But I think there's a lot of people here in the area pulling for Wisconsin.
All right, but it sounds like you are a Blue Devil man.